Hey team, welcome to your first Coach's Corner. These are going to be short video clips just to really explain different styles of training, different moves in the gym because it can be a minefield. So please take your time to watch these so you can get the most out of your training. So for this week, we are looking at the deadlift versus the Romanian deadlift, or sometimes known as RDL. So you might be thinking, oh, I thought that was the same thing. So they are two completely different exercises, both so useful, and they're both in your program at the minute because they both have a purpose. So we're going to run through that today. So first of all, what's the similarities? Well, they are both a hip hinge movement. We're going to run through that in a wee second. But basically, they both, as it says on the tin, hinge from the hip. Okay. Now, if you're a beginner, don't worry, this is why we want to break it down. It took me a long time to get my head around this, so this is why we're bringing these videos to you. So they're both a hip hinge. They're both going to build on your pulling strength, which is so beneficial for the full back of the body. Great for your posture and great for keeping you strong. They both work similar muscle groups, so the back of the body, the lower back, the glutes, the hamstrings, your core, right the way down to your calves as well. What's the differences then? So the deadlift, basically, that starts from the floor and that finishes at the floor. Let's think about deadlift from a dead stop, okay? So it must hit the floor in between each rep. The RDL, the difference there is that actually starts standing. We lower down, we do not touch the floor, and then it ends standing. So let's go back over that. Deadlift starts and finishes at the floor. RDL starts and finishes standing. So that's the difference. The deadlift, that's more for building like maximum overall strength. So it's a compound exercise. You're working many muscles at the same time. So you're going to be able to lift more on that. It's much easier to basically pick up a heavy weight and pick it up. You can pretty much plonk it back down. That's almost not easier, but you can lift more than having to control a weight down and then stand back up again. So hopefully you're starting to see the differences there. What's the main? I've got my wee notes here just in case. I want to make sure I cover everything. The range of motion as well. Like say, we're moving through a shorter range of motion on the RDL as we are down to the deadlift. So let's practice the hip hinge like I was talking about at the start. I want you to watch this and then pause your video, and I want you to practice this at home as well. Just body weight to start. So feet are hip width apart. Pulling the shoulders back, hands to the thighs. You're going to hinge at the hips, push your bum back, and then you're going down till you feel a stretch on your hamstrings and up. Hinge at the hips. I want you to imagine that there's a wall behind you with a big button on the wall. Let's pretend the button says, I am a 365 female, and your bum is to touch the button and back up. It's not just bending over, okay? You'll feel it as soon as you hinge, it activates those hamstrings. Okay, so pause that video and let's try 10 of them. If you're on the Finding the Feet program, we have you working on the kettlebell because I know from previous experience that that barbell, it can feel overwhelming, and we will get you there. As we always say, start light, get it right, and then you'll progress to the barbell feeling confident. So let's do the RDL first, right? Remember, what did we speak about? It starts from the standing. You lower down just to about middle of the shins and stand. I want you to keep an eye on my knees here, okay? So it's a soft bend in the knee. They're not locked, but we're not bending either. It's just a soft bend. I'm hinging at the hips and up. So my knees do not bend anymore. Control on the way down and stand. Now I'm going to show you a few kettlebell deadlifts, okay? So the difference here, it starts from the ground and we take it back down to the ground. Watch my knees in this one. I'm in a lower position, and because of this starting position, it's recruiting more muscles, the back and everything, so I'm going to be able to lift a little bit more. My bum's still slightly higher than my knees, so I'm not squatting, okay? We're here, standing up. Remember that hinge? But this time, I'm going to get a wee bend in my knee. And watch the knees. So you can start to see the difference between the deadlift, which I'm doing now, and then the RDL. Then, if you're cool with that, we're going to move on to the barbell. So, as you see, they can be very similar and they can get mixed up sometimes. So, I'm going to start with the RDL. Ideally, once you're getting quite comfortable with this, you can take it from the rack. If you're just starting with the barbell on its own, you could pick it up, go from here and back up. Okay, so I'm just going to pick this barbell up to start with. Oops. I've got that on slightly different height, but it doesn't matter for the sake of the video. You want it to be nice and even, and we're going to take it from the rack. So if you're in the gym, you're doing your RDLs, you've done your warm-up with just the barbell, you're ready to go with your weight. So taking hold of that barbell just outside of the hips, giving yourself the space. So we start at the top. I'm hinging at the hips, feeling the hamstrings, and stand. Sometimes what goes wrong here is people, if they're quite flexible, they want to go all the way down and they'll let their shoulders go lower than their hips, and that's going onto your lower back. So down to here is enough. Shoulders either just above or in line with your hips. And stand. So that's your RDL. It is working the full back of the body, but it's mainly a hamstring specialist. So if anyone had maybe weaker hamstrings, we have these in the program to build up your hamstring strength, which will then mean that when you get stronger, you can deadlift a little bit more. Okay, so like I say, really good exercise for building those hamstrings. Whereas the deadlift, we're going to take it from the floor and we're going to see what we can lift on that. So from the ground, from that dead stop, lifting your chest, we're going to stand up tall, hinge, tap the floor. Again, recruiting more muscles. So once you're confident with that lift, you can lift a little bit more. They are cousins. They go hand in hand. They really complement each other. I'm going to go over a few ways of how the deadlift can be done incorrectly. So here's one. If people sometimes complain of a sore back, it's because they're squatting. Okay, so say I'm here. Right. I'm going to stand up, okay? But people squat with the bar like that. And the minute you start to squat from the top, the load of that bar is going straight onto here. So remember, it's the hinge. You're getting your hamstrings there. And then you can use your muscles to pull it up. Next one, sometimes if it's too heavy, people are pulling it up like this. We call this the prawn. Pulling it up. And again, that's just going right on here. You're not using your legs at all, because when it gets heavy, the mind just goes, how on earth do I stand up? So start light and build it up. The third way people do incorrectly is the RDL, so the straight leg, the deadlift. Okay, so the legs are super straight. And that might be okay if it's light enough, but the minute that you start to want to go heavy, you won't be able to lift as much if you're RDLing that deadlift. I think I had one more. I had 4. Oh, yeah. Right, so people are like, right, okay, I'm doing an RDL, but they remember the deadlift legs. So they go like this, but they don't quite touch the floor. But the legs aren't like a stiff leg, so they're bending their knees. So it's not an RDL or a deadlift. So anyway, I'm going to stop there. I think that's enough to take in. If you're brand new, please just take your time. Like, say, this stuff, you might think, oh, I don't understand that. Let us know. Me and Nicole will run through it with you one-to-one to make sure that you really understand the RDL and the deadlift. Thanks for listening, everyone. Make sure you comment below with any questions that you have, and we look forward to our next Coach's Corner.